In this episode, you'll discover why the voice you think is protecting you is actually the thing keeping you stuck and how to take back control. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast helping women in career and life transitions achieve clarity on their next steps so they can transform uncertainty into an energizing next chapter. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you're wondering what's next in your career or life, you are in the right place. Through solo and guest episodes, you'll gain practical tips, tools, and inspiration to help you uncover blocks, gain confidence, and be, do, and have what you want. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. It's your coach, Kavita. And today we're talking about something that comes up in almost every conversation I have with women in transition. Whether it's a discovery call, a coaching session, or honestly, just a conversation over coffee. It's the inner critic. And not the version of the inner critic that you might expect me to talk about. It's not the loud or obvious one that says you're terrible or you can't do anything right. I'm talking about the version that is so quiet, so convincing, and so deeply woven into how you think that you actually believe it's you. You believe it's your own wisdom talking. And that is exactly how it hijacks your confidence without you ever seeing it happen. So stay with me to the end, because I'm going to share the specific gremlin that nearly kept me from ever doing this work, and the one thing that finally loosened its grip. So let me paint a picture of what this looks like, because I think when most of us hear the word or the phrase inner critic, we imagine this harsh and mean voice that tells us that we're worthless. And sure, sometimes it does sound like that. But for many accomplished, capable women who may be in the midst of a career or life transition, it almost never shows up that way. It shows up sounding more like common sense. It may sound like, you have a job, a good salary, and a stable life. Why are you complaining? Why can't you just be grateful for what you have? Or it could sound like this. You're almost 51. Just make it 14 more years and then you can retire. Just hold on a little longer. Or it could sound like this. You need to learn more first. You need another certification, another course, more research, more preparation before you could possibly put yourself out there. And it also could sound like this. Who is going to listen to you? Who is going to take a chance on you when there's so many other people already doing this? People who are more qualified, more visible, and more established. And it also could sound like this. You should be further along by now. You should have had this figured out. You've always been decisive, so what is wrong with you that you can't make this decision? Now here's what I want you to notice. None of those thoughts sound like a critic. Every single one of them sounds like a reasonable, responsible, level-headed adult who's simply being realistic. And that is exactly the problem, because when the inner critic speaks in the language of practicality and wisdom, we don't question it. We actually obey it. So what happens when you listen to that voice day after day and month after month, sometimes even year after year? It just doesn't keep you stuck. It starts to erode something much deeper. I've sat across from women who are incredibly accomplished, women who have led teams and built programs and earned the respect of everyone around them. And when I ask them what their inner critic is saying, what comes out is devastating in its quietness. Things like, I don't feel like I'm enough, or I don't feel like I deserve to be in certain rooms anymore now that I don't have my title to stand behind. Or I can help everyone else figure out their lives, but I can't seem to help myself, and I just don't understand why. That last one, I can help everyone else, but not myself. I hear it so often that I want you to sit with it for a moment. Because what's happening underneath is that the inner critic has convinced you that your worth comes from what you do for others. So the moment you try to turn the energy inward, the moment you try to focus on what you want, the critic shows up and says, "Who do you think you are? Why would you spend time and more energy on yourself when there are people who need you?" And then something else starts to happen. You start to feel resentful, not because you're a resentful person, but because you've been suppressing what you want for so long that it starts to leak out sideways. You find yourself irritated by things that shouldn't bother you. You feel a flash of anger when someone else makes a bold life decision that you wish you could make. And then the inner critic layers guilt on top of all of that too, because now you feel bad for feeling resentful on top of everything else. So that's the cycle. The critic tells you to stay, and you stay. You feel drained, you feel resentful, and then you feel guilty for feeling resentful. And then the critic says, "See, you can't even handle your own emotions. How would you handle a whole new life?" And on the outside, none of this is visible. That is one of the most isolating parts of it. You're still performing at work, you're still showing up for your family, and you're still the one people come to you for advice, for support, and for problem solving. You might even be getting the best performance reviews of your career. But inside, you are running on empty by Friday. Your partner asks you if you want to go out for dinner, and you can barely string a sentence together because you've poured every ounce of yourself into everyone else's needs all week. And there's simply nothing left for your own life. The people who matter most to you are getting whatever you have remaining at the end of the day, which is almost nothing. And you know it, and that knowing makes it even worse. And because nobody can see what's happening internally, nobody is telling you to stop. In fact, the people around you might be reinforcing the critic's message without even knowing it. Your boss may say, "You're too valuable to leave. Why would you walk away from this?" Your partner may say, "We rely on your income." And your friends may say, "You have such a great life. What's the problem?" And every single one of those well-meaning comments feeds the critic because the critic says, "See, even they think you should stay. Even they think you're being ridiculous for wanting more." And so you go quiet about it. You stop talking about the things you really want because you're starting to feel like a broken record. You've had the same conversation with yourself so many times that you're exhausted by your own indecision. And the truth is, it's not indecision. It's the inner critic intercepting every impulse towards change and dressing it up as doubt. I want to name something that I think will shift how you hear that voice going forward. In my coaching work, we talk about inner blocks, the things that stop the flow of positive energy in your life. And when it comes to the inner critic, or what I call the gremlin, it almost always shows up as wearing a disguise. There is the gratitude disguise. This is the voice that says, you should just be grateful for what you have. And gratitude is a beautiful thing, but when it's being used to silence your desire for something more, it's not gratitude anymore. It's a cage. And then there is the preparation disguise. And this is the voice that says, you're not ready yet. You need to learn more, know more, be more of an expert than you are before you can take a step. And the truth is that voice will never tell you you're ready because its job is not to prepare you. Its job is to keep you from ever starting, my friend. Then we have the practicality disguise. This is the voice that says, be realistic. Think about your income, your stability, your responsibilities. And yes, of course, those things matter. But when that voice has been saying the same thing to you for 2, 3, 6 years, it's no longer being practical. It is keeping you trapped in a life that is slowly draining you. Then there is the achievement disguise. And this one is sneaky, especially for high-achieving women. And it's that voice that makes you feel like if you're not reaching for the next level, something is wrong with you. I've seen women grieve a goal they didn't even want, not because they wanted it, but because the critic told them that they should want it. And walking away from that feels like failure, even when it's actually freedom. And the next one is the worthiness disguise. And this might be the deepest one. This is the voice that says, you don't deserve this. You don't deserve to be happy. You don't deserve to take up space in rooms where you don't have a title or a role to justify your presence. And this one often doesn't even announce itself. It just quietly runs in the background, driving you to overwork, overgive, and overprove, because somewhere along the way you internalize the idea that you have to earn your right to exist. But here's what I want you to understand. The inner critic was formed a long time ago. It was formed in childhood as a way to protect you from feeling embarrassed or rejected, ashamed or hurt. And for a long time, it may have served you. But in this season of life, in this transition, it is no longer protecting you. It is limiting you, and it is keeping you playing small. So I'm going to share something personal with you because I think it matters here. When I was transitioning out of my 25-year career in the pharmaceutical industry, my own gremlin had a very specific voice. It said to me, you are not qualified enough to do this. And that voice was deeply tied to my upbringing. I come from a traditional Indian family where you follow a path of education and you stick to that path. Pivoting from it simply is not done. So when I started to move towards coaching, towards this work that I felt so deeply called to, my gremlin said, who are you to do this? You have a biology degree and a business degree. What makes you think you can help people with their lives? And I listened to that voice for a long time, and it kept me small. It kept me stuck. Until I realized that the gremlin was not me. It was a voice that showed up every time I was about to do something that scared me, every time I was about to step outside of what was familiar. And the moment I was able to separate myself from it, to say to it, I hear you. I know you're trying to protect me, but I don't need that protection anymore. That is when things started to shift for me. So I want to leave you today with a few things you can actually do when you catch the inner critic in its act. These aren't fluffy ideas. They're grounded in research, and they're things that I use with my clients and in my own life. The first thing to do is to name it. One of the things I teach my clients is to actually name your gremlin and put a picture to it. It may sound simple, maybe even a little silly, but when you do that, something powerful happens. You depersonalize it from yourself. It is no longer you talking. It is this thing that shows up. And you can look at it and say, thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I've got this. When you name it, you create a separation between you and the voice, and that separation is where your power lives. The second thing is something called distanced self-talk, and it comes from the work of psychologist Ethan Kross, who has studied the voice in our heads for years. What he found is that when you're spiraling, when the inner critic is loud and you're deep in self-doubt, if you shift from saying, I to using your own name, something changes in your brain. So instead of saying, I can't do this, I'm not ready, who am I to try? You say, Kavita, what are you actually afraid of right now? What would you tell a friend who is in this exact situation? And what the research shows is that this small shift in language creates psychological distance. It helps you think about your own situation the way you would think about someone else's. And here's why I think this is so powerful for women like us. You are already brilliant at coaching other people. You already know how to see clearly for someone else. This technique lets you turn that same clarity inwards. You become your own coach simply by changing one word. And the third thing is what I call the friend test. And it comes from the work of Dr. Kristen Neff, who is one of the leading researchers on self-compassion. It's very simple. The next time your inner critic says something to you, whether it's you're not ready, or you don't deserve this, or just be grateful and stop complaining, I want you to pause and ask yourself, would I say this to a friend who came to me feeling this way? Would I look at a woman I love and respect and say, you should just stick it out for 14 more years? Would I tell her she's not qualified or that she should stop wanting more? Of course you wouldn't. You would never speak to someone you care about the way your inner critic speaks to you. And recognizing that gap, really feeling it, is one of the most powerful ways to loosen the critic's hold, because it shows you that the voice is not truth, it's not wisdom, it's a pattern, and patterns can be changed, my friend. Now, I'm not telling you that the gremlin goes away. It doesn't. Mine still shows up, but when you can recognize it, when you can see it through its disguises, when you have these tools to create even a small amount of distance between you and that voice, it loses its power to run your life. That is what changes everything. Not silencing the critic, but seeing it clearly enough that you get to choose whether or not to listen to it. And once you start to hear the difference between your inner critic and your own voice, something else starts to happen. You start to get curious, not urgent or panicked, not pressured to have all the answers right away, but genuinely curious about what might be true for you underneath all that noise. And that curiosity is actually the beginning of clarity. It doesn't come from pushing harder or thinking your way through it. It comes from creating a little bit of space between you and the voice that's been running things. So if you're in that place right now, if this episode has you recognizing some of those disguises for the first time, or seeing a pattern that you hadn't quite been able to name, I'd encourage you to take one small step with that awareness. I created the Career and Life Fulfillment Quiz as a way to help you see where you actually are right now, not where your inner critic tells you you are, but where you really are. It will show you where you're already fulfilled, where alignment might be missing, and what this season of life might be asking of you. Think of it as one way to start hearing your own voice a little more clearly. You'll find the link in the show notes for the quiz. And if what comes up makes you want to explore it even further, you can also book a Clarity and Next Chapter call with me. The link is there too. So thanks for listening, my friend, and remember, you get to decide what comes next. So say it with me. Say it with confidence. It's my time now.